This is the most famous painting of the Last Supper on Earth. It has also been dying for over 500 years. Right now, in Milan, monks who live in the very building need special permission to see it, and you get exactly 15 minutes if you can even get a ticket. This masterpiece is so fragile that scientists measure the air before letting anyone into the room. It should have been lost centuries ago. So how is it still here? It starts with a genius who gambled and lost. Around 1495, Leonardo da Vinci began painting the Last Supper on the dining hall wall of a convent in Milan. But Leonardo refused to paint it the normal way. A true fresco means working fast on wet plaster, and Leonardo wanted to work slowly, to revise, to build up light the way only he could. So he invented his own method, painting onto dry, sealed plaster instead. It gave him the freedom he wanted. It also doomed the picture, because the paint never truly bonded to the wall. The decay started almost immediately. Within about 20 years, the surface was already flaking away. By the time the writer Giorgio Vasari saw it, decades later, he described it as a muddle of blurred blots, with almost nothing left to make out. Leonardo's greatest work was falling off the wall while people who had met him were still alive. Then people made it worse. In 1652, the friars decided they needed a shortcut to their kitchen, so they cut a doorway straight through the bottom of the painting, taking Christ's feet with it. We only know what those feet looked like from early copies. Look at the base of the work today and you can still see the outline of the arch they later bricked back up. Over the next century came the restorers, and some of them were a catastrophe. In 1726, a man named Bellotti repainted much of it from scratch and sealed it under varnish. In 1770, another, called Mazza, took an iron scraper to the surface and washed it down with caustic lye, convinced he was cleaning a normal fresco until public outrage finally stopped him. And in 1821, a restorer named Baresi actually tried to peel the whole painting off the wall to move it before gluing the flaking pieces back. Every rescue did more damage than the neglect it was meant to fix. War found it too. When Napoleon's troops occupied Milan, tradition says they used the Great Hall as a stable, that soldiers threw stones at the wall and scratched at the apostles' eyes. Floods, damp and neglect each took their turn. And still, the painting hung on. And then came the worst night of all. On the night of the 15th of August 1943, British bombers hit the area around the church. A bomb landed just 25 meters from the painting. The roof came down. The vaulted ceiling collapsed. An entire wall of the hall was blown into rubble. But the wall carrying the Last Supper was still standing. Months earlier, someone had packed it with sandbags, mattresses and scaffolding, just in case. For 2 years afterward, that fragile wall stood half open to the rain and sun under tarpaulins, and a crust of white mold crept across the surface. One of the men sent to rescue Italy's art wrote that Leonardo's Last Supper might simply be in ruins. For a long time, no one knew if anything survived behind the sandbags. Something did. Starting in the late 1970s, a restorer named Pinin Brambilla Barcelon began the most painstaking rescue of all, working inch by inch under a microscope for more than 20 years, stripping away centuries of other people's paint to find whatever original Leonardo was left underneath. When she finished, in 1999, it started a fight that still is not settled. How much of what you see is actually Leonardo? Some experts say as little as 20%. Others argue it is closer to half. Nobody fully agrees. What is certain is that the painting on that wall today is part Leonardo and part ghost. Which brings us to now and the strangest chapter yet. The painting is so delicate that visiting it is like entering an intensive care unit. At the end of 2024, it passed to the care of Milan's Pinacoteca di Brera. You book months ahead, you pass through sealed chambers that filter your breath. and you get 15 minutes. Around 1.5 million people apply every year. Only about 500,000 get in. The director wants to allow just 5 more people per slot, but he refuses to until an experiment with a Milan university proves the painting can survive the extra human breath in the room. Even the monks who live in the convent have to ask permission to stand in front of their own wall. And here is the final irony. A painting that many experts do not even believe is fully Leonardo, the Salvator Mundi, sold for $450 million. This one, undisputed, the real thing, can never be sold at all. You can only rent it 15 minutes at a time for €15. On the opposite wall of that very same room hangs another Last Supper, a proper fresco by an artist named Montalfano, painted the correct way. It is still perfectly intact. Leonardo's technique is what failed. The wall never did. So the most fragile, famous painting in the world is also one of the most stubborn ever made. It has survived its own creator's mistake. A doorway through its heart, scrapers and lye, an army, a bomb, and 2 years out in the open air. It simply refuses to die. So here is my question for you. 500 years from now, do you think Leonardo's Last Supper will still be on that wall? Tell me in the comments. If you like a masterpiece that cheated death, watch our video on the Arnolfini portrait next, another painting hiding far more than it shows. And if you want art history with the real story left in, subscribe. We do this a few times a week. Until next time.